Hello, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me. I'm sorry that I wasn't here again last week. I got very sick and I did have to take that time to get better. Um, oh, I wanted to show you guys. I think I've shown you on my channel before, but look at this cute muffin shirt if you like bluey. I thought that was so cute. Um, I've noticed that views have gone down on videos, so I wanted to pose a question to those of you who are watching. Um, Is this something that you'd like me to continue doing? Is this something that is worth both of our times? Is this something that you look forward to watching? I would really appreciate some feedback. So if you could put in the comments, yes, yes, meaning please continue to record these read alouds and post them. Or if you don't say anything at all, I'll just assume that that means maybe step back again. I took about a year off due to just some life stuff, and also change of what I was doing for a job. I had to get some training and things like that. Um, and then I came back, and at first there was some interest in, some of the books I was reading, but just don't know if, from what I'm seeing in my views, if it's something that, my students are still using to connect with me. So, again, just let me know, be honest. If you want me to continue posting, just comment yes in the comments of this video. And if you just kind of, I guess, aren't even either watching this or you just don't really care one way or another, just you don't have to say anything in the comments, and I'll understand. I'll try to keep posting for the next 2 weeks. Keeping really busy with my new job and also taking a ton of tutoring students right now. So just let me know if this is worth both of our time. I love connecting with you in this way, but if it's something that, you know, you guys aren't getting anything from anymore, then I'll take a step back. So just let me know. Appreciate it. Thanks. Without further ado, let's get back into The Wild Robot. Let's see where we left off. We left off chapter 63, The Journey. Go ahead and make the screen bigger for me. Okay. The Journey. After months of separation, Roz and Brightbill, mother and son, were together again. And they had so much catching up to do. They went into the nest, and the robot built a fire. Then the goose gazed into the flames and told the story of his winter. This is what he said. We spent the whole first day of our migration flying over the ocean. It seemed like the ocean would go on forever. But just when the flock was getting tired, Longneck pointed to some tiny islands on the horizon. We flew down to one of the islands and ate dune grass and rested our wings. After a few days of hopping from island to island, we reached the mainland and continued over fields and forests. And then the snow began to fall. I'd never seen snow before, and at first I thought it was beautiful, but it just kept coming. The others explained that the snow was early and that we were never supposed to see it, but there it was piling up around us as we tried to sleep at night. Longneck worried that the weakest geese wouldn't be able to survive, and he was right. We lost old Widefoot to that very first snowstorm. We tried to fly around the snowy weather, but we got completely lost, and the weather became even worse. Lakes and ponds and rivers began freezing over. We couldn't find food or water, so we ate snow, and that only made us colder. We had trouble cleaning ourselves, and our feathers became dirty and heavy. The flock was in bad shape, but Longneck kept us moving. We are geese, he squawked, and geese keep going. One day, we were struggling through a snow shower when we saw something called a farm. It had perfectly square fields and enormous buildings, and stomping her way through the farm was a robot. She looked just like you, Ma. Longneck sent me over to speak to the robot, but I couldn't understand anything she said, so I just followed her through the farm and around a corner, and then I saw something I never expected. Plants! bright, colorful plants. I didn't understand how plants could live in such cold weather, but then I saw that they were actually inside of a building. I learned later that the building was called a greenhouse, and it had clear walls made of something called glass. The robot pressed a button on the wall, and the door slid open, and warm air came rushing out. I hadn't felt warmth in so long. I had to follow her inside. Ma, it was like summer in there. The air was warm and sweet and sticky, and there were rows and rows of different plants. The robot didn't pay any attention to me, so I wandered around the greenhouse, nibbling on leaves and drinking from puddles. Then I heard a scratchy voice behind me. If I were younger, I would have killed you by now. I spun around and there was an old cat. She walked on stiff legs and her fur was gray and clumpy. The cat's name was Snooks, and she didn't seem very nice. But then she saw the other geese out in the cold and their faces pressed against the glass. She told me how to open the door. You can rest here, said Snooks as the flock hurried in, but stay out of sight. The humans aren't as friendly as me. None of us knew what humans were, but we didn't care. We were just happy to be out of the cold. Loudwing was so happy she cried. The flock drank and ate and bathed and slept and stayed out of the way. Snook showed us where to leave our droppings so they wouldn't be noticed, and for a few days the greenhouse was our home. Once or twice a day, the robot would go outside and return with a box or a bag, but most of the time she stayed inside and quietly worked on the plants. There was a barn that I just had to explore. It was filled with animals and machines and piles of straw and two robots. One robot was fixing a broken door when I walked in. She was using a loud spinning tool called a saw. She pushed the saw through a long piece of wood and dust shot into the air. Everything was going smoothly until the saw suddenly lurched forward and sliced right through three of the robot's fingers. But she was fine. A minute later, there was a thwip sound as she popped on a new hand. Then she went right back to using the saw again. The other robot worked with the animals, chickens, sheep, pigs, and cows. They were all in cages. The chickens kept asking me how I'd gotten out of my cage. I was explaining that I'd never had a cage when I heard panicked squawks coming from the greenhouse. I ran back and found that a human had discovered the flock. We didn't know what he was saying, but he looked really angry. Longneck tried to defend us. He got in front and spread his wings and honked. But the human wasn't afraid. He pulled out a shiny stick, and pointed it right at Longneck. Snooks hissed, "Look out! He's got a rifle!" Suddenly, a bright beam of light shot out from the rifle, and Longneck slumped to the floor. He was dead, Ma. The flock was so scared. We fluttered around and honked and knocked over plants. But the human kept moving toward us, pointing his rifle. So I pecked the button to open the door and we ran outside to the cold and flew away from there as fast as we could. Without Longneck, the flock needed a new leader. Everyone wanted me to lead. I didn't know what to do, so I started by repeating Longneck's words. I squawked, "We are geese, and geese keep going." Then I took the point, and the flock spread out behind me. I'll continue in just a minute. This is a long story from Brightbill, but I wanted to show you some of the small pictures. So first we have the barn. Next we have the robot working in the greenhouse. And last we have the human. The weather had us all turned around, and nobody knew which way to go, so I just led us straight south. We saw more robots and humans in buildings, but we didn't stop. We knew we were way off course when we saw the ocean again, but at least it was a little warmer by the water, so I decided to follow the coastline for a while. There were more buildings by the coast. Most of them were on land, but some were in the ocean. The ocean buildings were dirty and crumbling and leaning in different directions. There weren't any humans or robots in those buildings, only sea creatures. We saw ships on the water. We saw ships on the land. We even saw ships in the air. They buzzed through the sky like giant dragonflies. And then we reached a place called the city, where thousands of buildings and robots and humans and ships were all close together. When we stopped to rest on a rooftop, we met a friendly pigeon named Graybeak. She had grown up there, so she knew everything about the city. She flew us over towers and under bridges and kept us away from all the buzzing airships. And everywhere we went, there were robots. Some of the city robots were just like you, Ma, but others crawled on 6 legs or rolled on wheels or slid up and down the sides of buildings. Some robots were really small, and some were really big. They moved things and cleaned things and built things and did every kind of job you can think of. Graybeak brought us down to a ledge on the side of a building and told us to look through the windows. Inside was a family of humans, and they had a Roz robot. When we looked into the other buildings, we saw other humans with other robots. Every human seemed to have a robot. I told Graybeak about you, Ma, and she wanted to show us one last place. We flew out to the edge of the city, to a really big building called a factory. Graybeak brought us to the roof windows, and we looked down into the factory. We saw machines building sparkling heads and torsos and limbs. The factory was building robots. A machine held up a robot torso and put 2 legs under it, and they snapped into place. It put feet under the legs, and they snapped into place. It snapped arms into the shoulders and snapped hands onto the arms. A head was snapped on top, and the robot was finished. Ma, the robot looked just like you. I think that factory is where you were built. There's the factory. I wanted to watch more robots being built, but it started to snow again, so we said goodbye to Graybeak and continued flying south. We saw fewer robots and humans and buildings and ships. The air became warmer, and the snow disappeared. We started seeing other flocks of geese in the sky, so we followed them to the middle of a wide grassy field where there was a lake and hundreds of other geese. We had finally reached the wintering grounds. After all we'd been through together, our flock had become very close. We kept to ourselves, eating and resting and remembering the geese that we'd lost. But after a few weeks, we began to mingle with the other flocks. We met geese from all over the world, and they told us about their homes and their migrations and their troubles with the winter weather. Every flock had lost geese on the way there. A few flocks didn't make it at all. Before we knew it, the early spring flowers were poking up, and it was time to fly home. We followed the usual migration route north. We flew over fields and forests and hills, but we didn't see any signs of humans or robots, and that was just fine with us. Eventually, we reached the ocean, and then our island, and then our pond, and then I saw you. Chapter 64, The Special Robot. After Brightbill told the story of his winter, he and his mother sat in silence and thought. They thought about poor Longneck and the human who had killed him. They thought about farms and cities and factories. They thought about Roz, and where she truly belonged. Then after a while, Roz told Brightbill her own winter story. She spoke of her dark hibernation, and of how she had awoken to find the nest caved in around her. She spoke of blizzards and frozen animals. She spoke of the many lodges she had built and the one that caught fire. But she mostly spoke of all the new friendships she had forged. I used to think that you were the only animal who would ever care about me, she said to her son. I worried that without you, I would be alone again. But I was not alone. In fact, I made new friends, all of my own. I think the other animals might actually like me. Of course they like you, Ma, squawked the goose. You're the most likable robot I've ever seen, and I've seen a lot. It was true. Brightbill had seen hundreds of different robots that winter, and none of them were anything like Roz. None of them had learned to speak with animals, or had saved an island from the cold, or had adopted a gosling. As he sat there watching the robot's animal gestures and listening to her animal sounds, Brightbill realized just how special his mother really was. We're going to stop there for today. I hope you're enjoying. We are getting really close to the end. That's us. And I always think that that chapter is interesting where Brightbill tells his story because it really paints a picture of the world that the wild robot lives in and also gives you some information as we go into the wild robot escapes. So once we finish the wild robot, if you've never listened to it before, stick around. We have a couple chapters left, obviously. There's some crazy stuff that happens. And then I highly encourage you to listen to the sequel, The Wild Robot Escapes. As of right now, I believe there's 3 books. The third book right now in the series is called The Wild Robot Protects, but I am about maybe just about halfway through the second book on my channel here. If you enjoy The Wild Robot, highly encourage you to listen to the sequel. And you might see more of the world that Brightbill just described in that sequel. Don't forget to comment if you'd like to continue to see me post video read alouds. I'd love to at the very least finish these 2 books, and then if there's really not any more interest on my channel after that, might be time to, like I said, take a step back, maybe say goodbye for now, but not forever. If I even have like one person say that they watch my videos like regularly, then that one person, you're enough for me to stick around and keep doing this. But again, if my only view is from Mr. Keller, who is my husband, who kindly gives me a view every video he's told me, then maybe it's time for me to move on. Just let me know. Anyway, have a great day. Thanks for joining me. I hope you enjoyed those 2 chapters, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.